Good evening, everyone. I'm Ankit, and you're watching StudyIQ IS English channel. This is Indian Express Analysis, and today is 4th of July. We are going to discuss important news and articles from the today's newspaper. We'll start off our today's discussion by having an elaborate discussion. Why is government planning to cultivate more and more pulses in India? Now you understand India is world's largest consumer of pulses, but it is also the largest producer of pulses. But even in that regard, its domestic demand can't be fulfilled by its domestic production. So for that, India needs to import a lot of pulses. So the government is trying to reduce the overall import of pulses by fulfilling this demand so that the farmers can grow themselves the pulses more and more what is required in the country. Now this discussion, which is an elaborate discussion on this issue, is relevant from GS paper 3 because you have to understand pulse is one of the most important crops in India agriculturally. Therefore, it is a part of agriculture in GS paper 3. In the second article, we'll understand India's moral stand on the issue of succession of Dalai Lama. You need to understand, like many countries in the world, India follows what is known as One China policy. So in that regard, it only recognizes this one government of China, that is the government led by Communist Party of China. So in that regard, India does not formally recognize Tibet. But even due to that factor, the India's Minority Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiren Rijiju, has made a statement on succession of Dalai Lama. So in that regard, we'll try to understand what has been India's diplomatic position on this issue and how it has evolved over the last few years, right? Now, this article again is relative or important from GS paper 2 perspective because it basically deals with India's international relations with countries like China, right? So second article is important from international relations perspective. In the third article, we'll delve into an article which is sourced from world history. Why? Today is 4th of July and 4th of July every year is celebrated as the Independence Day of America. It is equivalent of India's Independence Day on 15th of August. So what led to independence of America? What is the history behind it? And why is declaration of independence so important politically, not just in America, but even for other countries like India? We'll try to understand that. And before ending this particular article, we'll try to solve two questions that have appeared in the prelims examination. Now you have to understand those questions aren't from world history, but those are directly or indirectly related to American Revolution. How and why? I'll try to tell you today, okay? Now this article mainly is relevant from American history, that is GS paper 1, the world history part. It signifies American Revolution. So American Revolution is nothing but it's revolution against the colonial rule of British Empire, right? In the fourth article, we are going to understand the reasons behind dynamic and surge pricing. Dynamic and surge pricing you'll face on a daily basis in case if you use apps like Uber, Ola and Rapido, right? So these apps come with a feature known as dynamic and surge pricing, which basically is increases of prices in search of more demand. So in light of that, we'll try to understand how these two provisions work and what is the economic rationale behind these kind of provisions, that even though people are required to pay more amount, but this article will highlight that this eventually benefits the people itself, like you and I, okay? So we are going to understand this development. This is relevant from science and tech perspective, so the GS paper 3 is the relevant paper here. In the last article, if the time allows, we'll understand the Quad's latest initiative to beef up the supply of critical minerals. Now these kind of topics are relevant and a lot in news, so you can expect questions appearing directly or indirectly into the topic. The prelims of the year 2025 was no different. There was two questions that came regardless of this topic, so we'll try to solve that also in our today's discussion. If those questions or if these article is not covered today, do not worry, I'll record a separate video and get it uploaded by 8 a.m. tomorrow, okay? So it depends upon whether I'm able to complete this article, but I'll not skimp or I'll not try to hurry you up in the first 4 articles because all the articles are important today, okay? Now the notes of these discussion that we have daily, they get uploaded on the Telegram channel known as ATS Live, right? So you can go to this Telegram channel, subscribe to it if you still haven't, and download the notes after the end of the session, okay? Now there are few people here. Let me see. Sipra, Bishwajit, Shushmita, Sasmita, Simte, Bhanu, Baga, Kaizen, Kanchan, Mamta, Sripurn, Chandru, Amar, Jui Joshi, Baga. So please consider video for economics topic too, sir. This is what kind of a topic? This is economics topic, right? Even dynamic and search pricingly directly or indirectly relates to economics. How? I'll tell you. So need not worry. Whenever there is an important article, I for sure will cover it. For example, if you see those discussion relating to the Goldilocks scenario, that is a proper economy article. Okay. So these kind of questions appear for the separate series. Okay, I'll see. Good evening, Anis. Reshma, good evening. Now let us start our today's discussion with this first article. This article appeared in the page 5th of the Indian Express newspaper, right? Now, this article says that government is looking to promote pulses cultivation in 7 states via seed distribution drives. So, why does government want to distribute seeds? We'll understand this in our today's discussion. First, let us take a look at the context. Now, the Department of Consumer Affairs, which is responsible for monitoring of prices of essential commodities, this department also comes under Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Okay. Now, this department monitors the prices of essential commodities and makes provisions accordingly. So, this department now plans to promote cultivation of 2 pulses, that is arhar, commonly known as tur, and urad dal, which is through seed distribution campaigns across dozens of districts in 7 states. Now, you may know arhar and tur is very common in India. In northern areas of our country, people consume dal, whereas in South India, I believe that the sambar is prepared using this very dal only. And urad dal is also very important. Directly and indirectly, it is consumed throughout the country. So, therefore, these two are very essential when it comes to the pulses of our country. And you understand, especially for a country that has a large number of people who subscribe to vegetarian form of living, pulses are an important source of protein for them. So not just it fulfills their food security requirement, but pulses also fulfill nutritional security requirement. Understood? So that is why the pulses are a very important fact. First, before understanding this article, I'll like to tell you few facts relating to pulses in India. You can use these facts in your answer writing anywhere if a question comes on this topic. What you'll have to realize first is India is world's largest producer of pulses. It produces more than 1/4 of global production of pulses. Similarly, India is also world's largest consumer of pulses, responsible for again 27% of world consumption. And when it comes to import also, India is world's largest importer of pulses. It imports almost 14% of the global pulses that are traded globally, right? Now, you'll be surprised to know why India still imports, because of the fact all India production of pulses has increased a lot. It was 163.2 lakh tons in the year of 2015 and 16, and in the span of 8 to 9 years or so, it has increased to 244.93 lakh tons. So, despite this increase in production, India still requires to import a substantial number of pulses every year. For example, India is dependent on import to meet its pulses demand. As imports of about dozen pulses from different countries in India, India has seen a record import of pulses of almost 47.38 lakh tons. So, India produces how much? 24.93%. So, out of its total production, India requires to import about 20% of its production equivalent every year just to fulfill its domestic demand. So, the demand of pulses is so much that Indian farmers and cultivators are not able to fulfill this domestic demand, hence the need for imports. Understood? So, you'll remember these facts. Good evening, Ravi and Sojanya. Now, India imports pulses from different countries. For example, it imports tur and arhar from countries like Mozambique, Tanzania. These are Eastern African countries. Further, Myanmar, Sudan and Malawi also sends us many tur and arhar shipments. While India imports muttar, which is also known as peas, from countries like Canada, Russia and Turkey. For masoor dal, which is an important ingredient of khichdi, which most of us hate, I know, we import it from Australia and Canada. Similarly, Australia and Tanzania, it imports us chana, which is basically gram. Similarly, urad, we also import it from Myanmar. So, these are the important countries that you have to remember where we source our pulses from. Okay. Now, why has production lagged behind demand? There must be some very good reason for it, right? First, you need to understand the reasons behind it. First reason in this regard is demand-supply mismatch. Now, you need to understand whenever there is a rise in income in your family, combined with a greater consciousness that you need to also ensure nutritional security, the demand for nutritional aspects of food like pulses, etc., they are increasing day by day. So as people get more economically prosperous and more intellectually conscious, they demand more and more nutritious food. And as you can understand, pulses provides us protein, therefore demand of the pulses are rising. Now, whenever demand of any commodity rises, if the supply does not rise commensurately, you understand it will lead to increase in prices, and this has actually happened in India. First of all, you need to understand why has supply of pulses not kept up with increased demand. Now, first of all, in the last few decades or so, India has witnessed a very elaborate shift in cropping pattern. Earlier, India used to grow both pulses and cereals, but now majorly the farmers are growing cereals like rice and wheat. Why are they growing rice and wheat more? I will let you know, need not worry. So because of this, the good areas of our country, that is irrigated areas which grow large amount of crops, these areas, the farmers living in these areas, they prefer to grow more and more rice and wheat rather than pulses. So therefore, the supply of pulses has not increased as per the demand. Also, India witnesses a lot of rain-fed practices. That is about 55% of India's total gross cropped area. It is not irrigated, rather it is rain-fed. And most of these rain-fed areas are used to grow pulses only. That is only about 23% of areas under cultivation of pulses are supplied by irrigation. Whereas you understand the rest 77% of areas which grow pulse, they are rain-fed in nature. So in these areas which are rain-fed in nature, you understand the yields of pulses are not low. So whenever yields of any crops suffer, whenever yields of any crop suffer, you understand even the supply is not rising as per the required demand. Similarly, during the harvest process or during the post-processing process, we witnessed a large terms of losses of pulses. Why? Because of inadequate storage that are offered to farmers, the not so very aware practices that they store it somewhere where has a lot of moisture. So it leads to a lot of losses of pulses. About 20 to 30% of all the pulses that is produced in the country, it suffers from wastage. So because of these factors, you understand the demand is rising day by day, but has the production rise? The answer is no, because of shift in cropping pattern away from pulses towards cereal, rain-fed agricultural practices, where the good areas which are irrigated, farmers in those areas, they prefer to grow rice and wheat. Similarly, even due to post-harvest losses, whatever we are growing, 20 to 30% of it is getting destroyed. Understood? So these are the factors. There are other factors which we'll discuss. Now, another factors, that is the problems in relating to production of the pulses, it relates to input related challenges. First of all, the farmers who are growing these pulses, they do not have the required amount of high yielding variety of quality seeds, and therefore inflow of duplicate seeds in the market which are substandard in nature, the farmers are not able to push up their yields a lot. So this also plays a very key role in keeping the supply low as per the demand. Similarly, what we have witnessed is ineffectiveness of minimum support price regime. Now, in theory, government offers MSP for 22 commodities, right? But when it comes to actual procurement by government agencies of these crops, we have seen that the preference is given more to rice and wheat. So therefore, farmers are more willing to grow rice and wheat, knowing that government will procure them through MSP regime, not pulses. So therefore, I told you, the economic rationale when it comes to farmers are not willing to grow pulses, and that is why in the long duration we have seen there is a shift in cropping pattern away from pulses towards more and more cereals, for which the procurement is ensured by the government under MSP regime. Also, there is a very important phenomena that is called as cobweb phenomena. Now, cobweb phenomena, it leads to price volatility. How it leads to price volatility? Let me tell you. Now, suppose if the prices of pulses right now are very high, right? So, if the prices of pulses are very high, you understand whoever is growing pulses, they are commanding a good profit. So, it will encourage more and more farmers to plant more and more pulses, because they'll witness that right now many of their farmer brothers are making money. So who doesn't want to make money, right? So what happens if the prices of pulses or any commodity is high right now, it permits or it encourages more and more farmers to keep on growing more and more pulses. So because of this factor, the sowing of pulses increases. But you understand, whenever you reap any crop, it takes about 5 to 6 months for it to mature, right? So if you grow a crop right now, the yield of that crop will happen few months later on. So suppose this was what? This is June 2025, right? So in June 25, hypothetically, the prices of pulses are very high. So more and more farmers has sowed a pulse crop thinking that they will make profit later on when their crop matures. Now this crop matures, suppose in December 2025. Now what happened that during this time, not one farmer but many farmers have sowed their crop. So in this period, the supply of pulses increase. But what happens when a supply of any commodity drastically increases is it pushes down the prices. So what happens during this? The farmers who have grown a lot of pulses thinking that they'll make huge profits, rather their profits is very low because of fall in prices. So this happens that less number of farmers will sow crops for the next season. So this was December 2025. Now next year in June 2026, when this crop matured, which saw less amount of sowing by farmers, the supply of pulses reduce and this pushes up the prices. So understand, there is a cycle of volatility that once there was an increase in prices, it permitted more and more farmers to grow more and more pulses, and it led to very high amount of supply of pulses which pushed the prices down. So prices were very high in June 2025, it fall down hugely in December 2025, and this discouraged the farmers from growing more and more pulses. Therefore, the net sowing of pulses in December 2025 was very less, which eventually matured in June 2026, pushing up the prices. So this is a cycle of volatility that is associated by pulses, and it is also associated with many commodities like onions and tomatoes. And this entire phenomena is what is called as a cobweb phenomena. Any doubt now in cobweb phenomena? So in cobweb phenomena, inflation in any commodity like pulses, it follows a cyclical pattern where prices shoot up every 2 to 3 years. So I gave you an example for 6 months. It can happen for 1 year also if the duration of that pulse growing is 1 year. Understood now? So this is a very important factor. Whenever you are going to write about prices of any commodity in the exam, do not forget to write this word cobweb phenomena. This shows that you have prepared quite well, right? So this is what you get when you are taught by an economics faculty. Okay? Now what will happen next? What does government want to do in order to increase the production of the pulses? That we also should know, right? Now first, government obviously needs to enhance the production of the pulses, but how should it enhance the production of the pulses? Let us find out. Now there is a very important case study in this regard. Between the period 1991 and 2010, which is basically roughly 20 years of period, the average yield of chickpea, which is basically Kabuli chana, right? The thing that we used to make chole with, right? And tur and anhar dal, these two crops, when grown in Andhra Pradesh, they recorded a substantially high increase in their yield, and this was because of several practices that the farmers of Andhra Pradesh undertook. This included that the government of Andhra Pradesh provided them availability of high yielding, short duration and resistant variety seeds. So the quality of seeds that were supplied to the farmers were good. It led to good yield of the crops. Similarly, commercial cultivation was promoted through mechanizing the field operations, that is use of machines for the agricultural practices, and even efficient management of the supply of these crops. So this led to higher yield and lesser cost when it comes to labor related cost. Also, availability of storage facility was ensured so that the farmers are enabled to store their crops whenever the prices of any commodity fall. So whenever, suppose if you have a cultivation of a pulses, but at that time in the market, the prices of those pulses are very less. So what farmers can do alternatively, rather than distress selling them, they can store it somewhere. That few months later, they might sell in the market whenever the price of that commodity is good. So this happens whenever you provide green storage facility to the farmers. So this happened in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So when this can happen in one state of our country, why can't it be replicated to other states of the country, right? So this is what the government needs to follow also on an all India basis. Similarly, government also needs to encourage the farmers by promoting awareness with them. Suppose growing pulses comes with many benefits. Not just the farmers are going to get high returns in the market, but it also enriches the soil fertility and it conserves water as compared to other commodities, like rice and sugarcane. So farmers also have many benefits in addition to the economic benefits, like it will promote soil fertility, which will lead to high yields later on for the same farmer, and it will also help these farmers use less water, which is very good for environmental purposes also. Also, towards this, forming a different pulse board like silk board, like makhana board, like other coir board, etc. This creating a separate board for pulses will play a very important role in promoting the crop through consumer awareness campaigns as well as ensuring market linkages. So these are the areas in which the government can work. Further, the government can also help farmers increase their productivity by bringing down duration of pulses. And how you can do that? By undertaking technological interventions and bringing new seeds that have a shorter duration period. So suppose if the seeds come with shorter duration period, automatically in a span of 1 or 2 years, the farmers can grow more number of crops. Understood? Similarly, government can also ensure biofortification program like Harvest Plus iron enriched lentil varieties, which will help the yield gap between pulses and other cereal crops. So this is where the R&D factor can play a very important role in bringing technological intervention. Similarly, we also need to increase farmers' income by enhancing post-harvest management and ensuring direct marketed linkages. We should ensure that farmers are able to sell these pulses to the food processor organization so that they are ensured of an economic return after they are growing their pulses, and that it leads to storage and development of new varieties also, right? So this is how we can encourage more and more production of pulses, which will help down reduce our overall dependence on imports of pulses. Understood? Any doubt you have? Now, if you don't have any doubt, let's see how many of you are able to solve this question. This is a PYQ of 2020. Although this does not directly relate to our discussion, but I hope you should be able to solve it. No problem, Rishi. Good evening, Anuj. Anuj, I have come to remember because he is from the same place where I was born, Ranchi. Well, yes, both of are incorrect, but why are they incorrect? All of you are right, surprisingly. No, Rishi, option D is the right answer. Both of are incorrect, but I want you to explain why it is incorrect. Anyone? मैं तो भूल गया क्यों incorrect है. Can anyone explain it to me? No, not practical. ठीक है. Second one, you are correct. It is not practical. But first, the word is not unlimited. This word, what is there, is called as open-ended. Right? What does open-ended means in MSP? Now, government says that whosoever brings the required quality crop to me, I will procure it. So this means that the procurement of crops under MSP is open-ended, that whatever will be brought to government, they will procure it. They will not go door to door and collect it. So this is not unlimited, this is open-ended. The second is, in case of cereal and pulses, the MSP is fixed at a level where which the market price will never rise. This is incorrect. Why? Because the MSP is a protective value. In case the market price is above MSP, the farmers are free to go and sell it in the market. But in case the price of any commodity falls below MSP, then the farmers have an option to go to government agencies, because government agencies will pay them MSP, which at that time is a higher amount. Understood? MSP does not vary state-wise. MSP is declared India-wise. So MSP of a crop is same in Punjab, MSP of the crop is same in Bihar, MSP of the crop is same in Madhya Pradesh. So this is incorrect, right? But unlimited should have been open-ended, which would have made this question or statement correct. Okay, so therefore option D is incorrect. Now this is a question that you can attempt, especially Saujanya, you can. And the ones who attempted correctly, please submit it in the discussion group. I will see your answers and tell you what is good and what is bad. I've actually provided you everything. Okay. Now let's move to the different article. This is basically two articles that says that the India's Minority Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiren Rijiju, has said that no one but Dalai Lama can decide the reincarnation or how the next Dalai Lama will be chosen. Similarly, this is a big op-ed written by a famous professor of JNU, Mr. Amitabh Bhattu. He has also said that India and world must stand with Dalai Lama and prevent Beijing from choosing the next Dalai Lama. So in that regard, let us understand why are we discussing this article. Now, India yesterday, especially the Minority Affairs Minister, he has asserted that the succession of the 14th Dalai Lama has to be decided by established practices and no one but the present Dalai Lama has or is the right one to decide on this. Now, this statement came ahead of the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday celebration, which is expected to happen on Sunday in the city of Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh, and where union ministers Mr. Kiren Rijiju and Rajiv Ranjan Singh, they are scheduled to attend this religious ceremony, right? Please pay close attention to the word. This is a religious ceremony, okay? Now, what you need to understand about this issue, that this statement from Government of India or a minister of a Government of India is an official statement. And it came after the country China has described Dalai Lama earlier as a separatist and has stated that the spiritual leaders in reincarnation, which means the next Dalai Lama, should be approved by Chinese central government. On Wednesday, the erstwhile or the current Dalai Lama, he made a statement that the 600-year-old institution of the spiritual head of the Tibetan Buddhism, it will continue even after his death, and he has set up a different trust to decide on who will be the next Dalai Lama, and it is only this trust who has the authority to tell who will be the next Dalai Lama after the current Dalai Lama. Understood? So this is the issue that is being going on around here. Now, in this regard, let us understand what is the approach of Government of India towards the issue of Tibet. Now, Government of India's approach toward Tibet's government in exile, which is officially known as Central Tibetan Administration, CTA, this administration is managed from the Indian city of Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. Now, India's approach can be seen as a mix of humanitarian support as well as strategic ambiguity. What are these two aspects? We will discuss in detail in our today's discussion, okay? Now, what you need to understand, first of all, officially, Indian government does not recognize Central Tibetan Authority as an official government. Why? Because like many countries in the world, even Indian government follows one China policy, which means the only Chinese government for India is the government that is headquartered in the city of Beijing, not Taiwan, not Tibet, right? So, based on this one China policy, India recognizes Tibet as a autonomous area located in the country of Taiwan. So therefore, India does not recognize Central Tibetan administration as a sovereign or a legitimate government in exile, right? So it acknowledges Tibet as what? As an autonomous region which is a part of China, and China is located, or the capital of China is located in Beijing, and the only government of China, according to many countries in the world, including India, is the government which is headed by President Xi Jinping. Okay. But hosting Dalai Lama and Tibetan refugees, India continues to host both of them. Now, when the current Dalai Lama, 14th Dalai Lama, he fled from China after being thought of getting persecuted, Indian government at that time, which was headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, allowed him asylum to be located in India, and for that purposes also they were allowed to set up a government in exile known as CTA, which functions currently from Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. Now, even India allowed the government to function and also allowed the many thousands of Tibetan refugees to continue to live in India. Not just they were allowed to live in India, but government of India provided them with the humanitarian assistance, which includes provided them with land to get settled in India, provided them the opportunity to study in India through established educational institutions, and gave them registration certificates, which provides them the residential permit to these refugees who continue to live in India, right? So these are the support that Indian government has given them, but you have to understand Indian government even today does not formally recognize CTA as the sovereign authority. The only sovereign authority in China for government of India is the government of China in Beijing, right? Now, what is the citizenship and legal status of Tibetans who are living in India? Now, Tibetan refugees who are living in India, they are technically stateless because Indian government has not provided them with citizenship, even though they were born and raised in India. Many of them actually. Now, the Indian government has granted citizenship to some of them on a case-by-case basis, but Indian laws does not allow the government of India to automatically grant citizenship to Tibetans who were even born in India after 1987. Why? These were born in India, but they were born to parents who actually were born in Tibetan. So therefore, these people are also foreigner for Indian government perspective. But India allows them limited political activity, but India does not tell them to do anti-China campaigns because it will harm India's diplomatic relations with Chinese government. Similarly, these anti-China protests will not be tolerated by India. This is the India's official position on this matter. Now, what you need to understand, what is the word strategic ambiguity in this engagement? Now, India historically has walked a very tightrope in balancing these two concerns. India does not want to antagonize the government of China, but India also wants to ensure the welfare of Tibetan people. So, publicly, Indian government has avoided official engagements with the CTA's political wing so that it does not want to antagonize the Chinese government. But privately, Indian officials may have informal contacts and sometimes they even attend cultural events. For example, Indian ministers, they rarely meet with Dalai Lama officially, though some MPs and regional leaders, they might interact with Tibetan leaders unofficially. So whatever interaction happens with Indian officials and Tibetan officials, these are unofficial interactions. They do not have the sanctity of the government, right? Now, what you need to understand, there has been a shift in India's posture towards Tibet right at the time when Prime Minister Modi became the Prime Minister since 2014. So, under the Modi government, there are signs of a slightly more assertive approach on Tibetan outreach, especially after India's relationship with China soured after Doklam conflict as well as Galwan conflict. Now, in 2020, a surprising thing happened. That is, Prime Minister Modi publicly greeted the Dalai Lama on his birthday, and it was a rare move which is seen as a message to China. India said that if you are not sensitive to our concerns, we'll also meddle in your affairs, when Prime Minister Modi publicly on Twitter congratulated Dalai Lama on his birthday. So this was seen as a very assertive approach by a head of government of India towards Tibetan cause. Understood? So this is how, see, radical shifts do not happen in diplomacy. In diplomacy, you'll see only gradual shifts happening, and most of them have a symbolic value. You won't do anything good by just wishing Dalai Lama the happy birthday, but it is a symbolic gesture to China. See, if you meddle in our affairs, we'll continue to meddle in your affairs, right? So this is what strategic ambiguity means. Understood? Now, also you'll see that on this succession issue, India's stance on this succession issue is very geopolitically significant. First of all, this was a issue raised by the India's Minority Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiren Rijiju, and Mr. Kiren Rijiju also happens to be a Buddhist, right? So he has said that although this event is in Dharamshala is a purely religious ceremony and it is not a political platform. So on one hand, government of India through its Minority Affairs Minister, it is trying to distance itself from any overt political messaging. But while doing so, India has also reiterated India's traditional position on the religious freedom and Tibetan traditions. What China wants to do, it wants to deny these Tibetan people their religious freedom and wants to deny them the opportunity to choose their own spiritual head as per the known conventions. But on the other hand, India is saying that the only place that, or the only person who has the authority to choose the next Dalai Lama is the current Dalai Lama, right? So this is India's gradual shift in the diplomatic posture towards Tibet, while still maintaining the fact that it does not officially recognize Tibet as a sovereign government. Why? Because India follows what is known as One China policy. Understood now? Any doubts? Any doubts? है तो बता दो, नहीं तो विल मूव टू नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल. What is the difference between functional literacy and education? Well, education can be anything. Education can be about economics, education can be about politics, education can be about anything, right? But functional literacy that I'm making you aware of the languages, you are able to read, write, do math, right? But more than that, functional literacy includes your ability to fill out forms, your ability to surf the internet, your ability to make UPI payments. So what is the point of education if you are not able to do this basic tasks which are required of a human being in 2025? So this is what functional literacy is. Understood, Govind, now? One China policy. Amar, I told you that, see, there are different conflicts on who is the real China, right? Taiwan says that we are real China. The government in China, which is headed by Xi Jinping, they say we are China. Tibet say that we are a autonomous or we are an independent country. So India says that for us, and many countries also has that same opinion, that for us there is only one China, that is the Chinese government headed by Xi Jinping, and which is capital, or whose capital is in Beijing. Okay, rest everything, government of India does not recognize it. Why? Because China says if you have to have a diplomatic relations with us, you'll have to formally recognize us or our supreme leader Xi Jinping as the only leader of China. So this policy is called as One China policy, right? Any doubts, Amar? Yes. Taiwan, whenever the Chinese tussle was going on, so few of the leaders, they moved from Chinese mainland to an island which is currently Taiwan, and they established a independent government there. So the government of Taiwan back then, which was led by a party known as KMT, they claimed that they are the original China, whereas the communist government in Beijing, they claimed that they were original China. So like the dhabas that you see, original dhaba, new dhaba, ye dhaba. So there are different claims who is the original dhaba. Similarly, China also has that same policy. So for every major country in the world, there is only one China, that is the Chinese government headed by Xi Jinping, its supreme leader. Okay. Now let us move to this article. Enough joking. Let us move to this article. This is from the explain section, and after a long time, a world history related article has come in the newspaper. So let us discuss this article. Why actually is American Independence Day celebrated on 4th of July, right? Now, why are we discussing this article? Because today, US celebrates 249th Independence Day, and it is the date of July the 4th. Now, this was the date in which the US's founding fathers, they formally signed a document that was called as a Declaration of Independence, which according to them officially ended the British colonial rule over their colonies and led to formation of a country which is now known as United States of America. So what led to this event? We'll discuss this in our today's discussion. Now, this is a portrait which is a very famous portrait that led to the signing of this document, and this, all people, you understand, these are founding fathers of America and they are signing the Declaration of Independence. So this Declaration of Independence was the basis of formation of what is known as United States of America today. Okay. So let us know, or let us try to understand what happened. Now, before this Declaration of Independence happened, for more than 150 years before it, United States was under the colonial rule of British Empire. And at that time, the United States, or what was the colonies of United States, they had grown frustrated with the British crown. Now, originally, United States was a 13 different colonies, but you have to understand, whenever they were under the colonial rule, they did not have a formal representation in the British Parliament, and thus created a lot of frustration among the people of United States back then. Right. So during this time, what happened that the British Parliament, who did not include members of America back then, they passed a series of law which imposed high taxes, and it curtailed even the activities that was going on in the United States. So what was the series of laws? What was the imposition of high taxes that led to this controversy? Let us understand them one by one. Now, during the decades of 1960s and 1970s, the colonial government in US passed many laws. These were Sugar Act of 1964, which increased the taxation on sugar. Now, sugar was an imported commodity in India. So, obviously, whenever taxes on any imported commodity raised, the prices of those commodities in the American markets also increased, right? Similarly, tea was also an imported commodity from Britain. Now, what happened before this Tea Act of 1973, that East India Company, which was the company who ruled India for some time, they used to sell these tea indirectly into the American markets with the help of few merchants. So, after this act was enacted in 1973, it meant that the East India Company, who earlier used to sell this tea to merchants, and these merchants were able to sell it into American markets, this act bypassed these merchants altogether. So according to this act, it meant that East India Company can directly sell tea into American markets. So it effectively meant that the merchants who were American citizens back then, they were not able to make profit. Similarly, when East India Company sold tea directly into the market, it meant that taxes on tea that was imposed by British Parliament on East India Company, the American people would have to directly pay these taxes. So this brought a very big issue which we'll discuss. Understood? So what happened during this, that all these acts were passed? An intolerable act was passed after a very significant event known as Boston Tea Party, which we'll discuss. Okay. So these were the issues that actually frustrated the people of America. Now, in protest of this Tea Act, which directly meant that American people would pay British taxes which were levied on them without any adequate representation, this was a big form of frustration. So this led to a very brutal movement in the entire America. There was this very famous anti-British group known as Sons of Liberty. So what the Sons of Liberty and the members of this group did, that they went to the Boston Harbor. Boston Harbor was the place where tea, which was imported from UK, it arrived into US soil, right? So these people belonging to Sons of Liberty, they went to Boston Harbor, and when they boarded a ship which had a significant shipments of tea coming from UK, they dumped all these tea shipments back into the waters. So it effectively destroyed, in today's worth, millions and millions of dollars worth of tea. And this incident, that is dumping of this tea into water of or harbors of Boston, it is known as Boston Tea Party. So this was seen as a protest of American citizens against act that was passed by British Parliament. Why? First of all, these act or these levied many taxes on British citizens, and effectively American citizens, they did not have an effective representation in the British Parliament. So this led to a very important slogan known as no taxation without representation. American people say that when you do not give us the authority to choose our electors who are sitting in the parliament, so what makes you think that you can impose a tax on us, right? So this was why these acts led to protest in American country. Now, to deal with this protest, British brought an intolerable act of 1974. This act closed down the Boston Harbor. It increased the deployment of British troops on American soil, and it also increased more and more taxation on British people, on American people, so as to finance all those British troops that were stationed into US. So this also increased the frustration of American people due to excessive British interference in their own lives. Also at that time, the era of enlightenment was going, and in this era of enlightenment, many important theorists like John Locke, like Rousseau, like Montesquieu, they brought ideas of having a natural rights, popular sovereignty idea. So people of America also became of these theories. So people thought that what is the point of liberty when we are living under a colonial rule? It is the colonial rule who we do not have a power to elect, we do not have a power to send them back. They are imposing taxation on us, right? So this was this big issue that plagued the American society back then. Okay. Any doubts up till now? Sir Akash, this is my first class. should I write or notes will be available? Notes will be available on the Telegram channel. I will give you the link at the last. Okay. Gaurav, good evening. Any doubts up till now? No. So let's move ahead. Now, to decide what they'll do after Boston Tea Party and after Intolerable Acts, 13 colonies, US was not a country back then. US was basically 13 different colonies. Boston Tea Party. Sayali, I told you, right? There was this act known as Tea Act, right? So in Tea Act, before Tea Act, what used to happen that East India Company used to sell tea which was sourced from Britain to merchants in US, and these merchants eventually sold tea into the markets of America. But due to Tea Act, what happened that they actually said that East India Company would directly sell tea into American markets, effectively doing away the profits that the merchants made. And these merchants effectively were American citizens back then. So this also meant that when a British company who was paying taxes in Britain, they were selling tea directly into American markets. So it effectively meant that American people were paying taxes to AIC, who is depositing them in Britain. So it ultimately meant that the colonies in US back then, they were not able to send their own representatives to the British Parliament. What happens in an independent country, right? Suppose in an independent country like India, you elect MPs and those MPs sit in the Parliament, and one of the jobs of Parliament is to enact or impose taxes on India, right? So this is a rightful way of doing taxes, because we are electing the electors, MPs, who are deciding on how much tax should be there. But what if we do not elect any MPs and the government on its own fixes taxes on India? This is not right, right? So this exactly what happened in United States. Understood? So that is why, to protest Tea Act, what few American people, that is Sons of Liberty, did, that they went to Boston Harbor. In Boston Harbor, ships used to come from Britain which was carrying tea. So what these people did, they boarded one of these ships. Before these ships were emptied into America, they dumped all the tea into the waters itself, effectively destroying millions and millions worth of tea. Understood now? Any doubt now, Sally? Now, to decide on further course of action, America back then, you have to understand, was not a country. It was a group of 13 colonies. So these 13 colonies decided to form what is known as a Continental Congress. Now, earlier these Continental Congress, they tried to enforce a boycott of British goods, and while doing so, they wanted to meet the King George III to negotiate better terms of their governance. But these attempts did not fulfill anything. So what it meant that by April 1775, all these 13 colonies were fighting a full-blown war of independence against the British Crown. So this is how the American independence movement started. It started with certain laws and legislations which was passed by Britain, which imposed higher taxes and imposed higher economic burden on people. But people know that they did not, or they were not itself allowed to send members to the British Parliament. So how can British Parliament impose taxes on them? Right? Now this war went till 1783, when Britain for the first time formally recognized American independence after it was militarily defeated by the Americans. Now this American victory was also supported by the rivals of British Empire, that was European empires like France, Spain, Dutch Republic. So they effectively indirectly supported the Americans in their fight against the Britishers. Like, so how many of you have seen Panchayat? So in that third season, when the new Sachiv comes, Bhushan gives him the hammer, right? And then goes to drink tea, seeing that the hammer is being stuck. So the role of Bhushan was actually done by Spain, Dutch Republic and France. They provided Americans with weapons so that Americans fight the Britishers. Now, years before 1783, when fighting was raged on, you understood that for the first time British recognized American independence, it was 1783. But before 1783, Continental Congress itself declared American independence from British rule, and this happened on July the 2nd, 1776, which was effectively 7 years before the British recognized American independence. Now on July the 2nd, 1776, 12 of 13 member states of Congress, they unanimously observed that the colonies, they are of the right, are free and independent states in themselves. Right? Now, John Adams, who later on went to become the second president of United States, he stated that the second day of July 1776, it will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America, and it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as a great anniversary of festival. So why is American independence being celebrated on 4th of July, not 2nd of July? The answer to that question is, though they made this declaration on 2nd of July, but the formal signing of a document that stated that America is independent, it happened on 4th of July, and this document is known as Declaration of Independence. So the Constitution of India, it was passed on 26th of November, but we ourselves had decided that Constitution of India will get enacted from 26th January 1950. So our Republic Day is 26th of January, not 26th of November. Understood? Similarly, Americans agreed on getting themselves independent from Britishers on 2nd of July, but they signed this document on 4th of July. That is why 4th of July continues to be celebrated as United States Independence Day. Now, this Declaration of Independence is very important, not just for America, but for the other countries of the world, including India. Why? Because if you read the Declaration of Independence, it states that we hold certain truths to be self-evident, and these truths are known as all men are created equal. So, this is the basis of right to equality in a democracy. Right? So, India also provides right to equality under Article 14, 15, 16, and this originates from this very concept. Similarly, this document also states that all men, they are created equally and they are endowed by their creator, that is God, with certain unalienable rights. Right? So, this rights or this unalienable rights is also the source of our or source of inspiration for our fundamental rights that are given in the part 3rd of the Constitution of India. And it also states that American Declaration of Independence wants to fulfill certain principles of life, that is right to life, right to liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And right to life is a part of Article 21 of Indian Constitution, and liberty is one of the goals that is mentioned in the preamble of India. Understood? So this is how American Declaration of Independence continued to inspire many democratic countries, including the formation of Indian Constitution. Understood? Why is American independence so important? So that UPSC also asks questions on this regard. Any doubts? Now, if you have understood, let's see how many of you are able to solve this PYQ of 2018. It appeared in the prelims examination. Which one of the following reflects the most appropriate relationship between law and liberty? Okay, Simte, Sarang, Bhanu, Rishi, Shushmita, Yashi, all of you are saying B. But why is B right answer? Explain your answers. Sailian, Baga, Akash, you are saying option C is right. Shuddhamati is saying option A. Explain. Well, suppose if there is no law, there will be lawlessness, right? So when there will be no law, there will be lawlessness. So the strong will overpower the weak. So how will anyone enjoy liberty? Only the strong people will enjoy liberty. Weak people won't, because there is no one to protect them. So you need laws to protect people, because afraid of laws, people won't uh, exploit the other people, right? So what is liberty? Liberty is actually to do anything you want so that you improve your life. But suppose if there is no law, other people will exploit you. There is no recourse available to you. That is why the true sense of liberty is only enjoyed in case there are laws and a government to implement the laws. You can't enjoy liberty in a lawlessness society. You can't enjoy liberty in forest, because in the laws of forest, the only king is tiger. Tiger will eat everyone. Lions will eat everyone. There is no liberty for smaller animals. But when you ensure that tiger behaves, lion behaves, then only the small animals will have the liberty to move around, right? So therefore, option B is the right answer. Next question. In context of polity, which one of the following you would accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? Yes, Rishi, you are right. Well, in India, liberty means two concepts. Liberty means positive liberty. Liberty also means negative liberty. An Indian constitution, if you read the preamble, it states liberty of thought, belief, faith, worship, or expression. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. So this means that first of all, negative means that there are no restraints, right? And while there are no restraints, positive liberty ensures that you have the opportunity to make yourself a better life. That is, you are provided with whatever you require to make yourself a good life. That is, you are provided with good economy so that you can work. You are provided with good colleges so that you can study. So India subscribes to both aspects of liberty. Liberty means absence of restraint. India, you have certain rights, although these are not absolute, but still they are very good rights. Similarly, we also provide with equality of opportunity, right? So this is what the concept of liberty actually means. The correct answer is opportunity to develop yourself fully. This would have also been correct had the option D would have been something else. Okay, so D, this question says most appropriate, not the only appropriate one. So D is the most appropriate here. Now, these are important concepts of polity, and we explain each and every concepts in great detail in our resolution batches, right? So suppose if you have problems in polity, if you have not read polity, or if you are having difficulty in understanding polity, please do not forget to subscribe to any of the courses, especially the foundation level courses on the StudyIQ. In the foundation level courses, we provide education from the very beginning, so that the students who are starting their journey, they won't have any problems in understanding these concepts, right? Now, the ones who are answering it correctly, I'm 100% sure they might have read something about polity before. Otherwise, they will not know these kind of concepts, right? So if you give this question to a lay person, they will sure mark it incorrectly, right? So one of the options that you have is to subscribe for a 2027 batch, and please remember, we also have batches available for students who are looking to give exams next year or in 2028. So for 2027, you are required to pay 34,999 and it will give you many benefits. What are these benefits? Let me tell you. Suppose go to our StudyIQ's website. Once you go to this website, you'll be needing to create an account here first, right? Once you create an account here first, select all language and click English. Why am I saying English? Because many of the students who are watching this session, I'm sure you are from Northeast or from South India. So you guys will have problems in bilingual or in Hindi batches. So for you, the English only batches are the best option. What you need to do in case if you have to take admissions in anyone, for example, for this 2027 batch, click on Buy Now. Once you click on Buy Now, it says 41,999 is the course fees. But once you click Buy Now, there is an option for you to add promo code right here, ATS Live, and click Apply. As soon as you click Apply, you'll realize 7,000 rupees discount is applicable, and this course now is available at 34,999. Now, the best part about this course is that it comes with a validity of 3 years, 4 months, that is 40 months in total. So you have an option to give exams also up till 2028 because of the good validity this course provides. Now, in case if you have any doubt, if you want to subscribe to any other courses on our platform, the ATS live discount will give you discounts on all, and please feel free to call us for counseling 9240231070. These counselors will help you out in every query. Okay, do not forget to give us a call. Now, the time is almost 5:05. So let's end our today's discussion. We'll pick up from this article tomorrow. The notes, these will be available on the Telegram channel called as ATS Live. So search this word ATS Live in the Telegram channel. You will find the channel. Okay, someone was asking. Okay, so you'll find this channel. I'll make the notes available few minutes afterwards. So you'll be able to download it. I'll see you again tomorrow. Please have a very good day.